Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, if you thought the wrestling that you'd had before was enough, then you don't know that there's no such thing as enough wrestling. That's right, if 2 in a week weren't enough, that's right, yeah, we got a third. So, another pay-per-view on the cards, ladies and gentlemen. And the Getting Over boys don't allow things like holidays to get in the way of recording a podcast for your viewing and listening pleasure. Speaking of viewing, if you're not checking us out on YouTube, please do. And if you are checking us out, obviously you've subscribed, which is cool. And if you haven't, you're going to click that button right about now, I'm guessing. Cool. So here we go. This is CookieCast Getting Over.
Hello again, we are back. It is time for CookieCast and it is time for Getting Over. It's a bit of a shorter turnaround as we mentioned last week, so, thanks for joining us again so quickly. And as you can see, or as you'll be able to hear shortly, everybody is in the house. So we've got Matthew Moore. Evening. Paul Williams.
Good time.
And as always, the master of the channel, Mr. Andy Cook.
Good evening.
I think that's your new title now, Andy. I think Channel Master has quite a nice ring to it.
Well, I've been called other masters, so Channel Master's probably a better one.
So as always, we've got a lot of predictions to get through after 2 events last weekend, and results-wise, you might have noticed that despite the fact that technically I am on holiday, I've managed to be captured back in Andy's basement again. And
I never let them get that far away.
Unfortunately, you might also have noticed if you're watching along on YouTube that my title seems to have disappeared from behind me. Could that be a sign? Well, we can get to some takeover results. So, firstly, I've done the results night by night, obviously, and we'll kind of go through it on that sense. But to kind of allude to what I've just said, after a possible 5 points from takeover, I scored 2. So back to form. Here we go. Bottom of the pile. But you know how that we like a clear winner for the predictions title. You guys decided that between you'd just get 3 points each. So that after night 1 made the determination of the new champion pretty difficult. So I was hoping for some separation at SummerSlam, but we'll get into that. So takeover. You guys a chance to see it, catch up on results perhaps. What do we think? We've got. We can go through it match by match if you want, or we've just got highlights we can talk about.
It was another good card. Like I'm still in the position of to say we've had 30 of them now. Don't think I'm still yet to watch one that I've thought that we need to have that.
Yeah, I agree. They're always solid, and even if you think the card's a bit like meh on paper, it usually develops into still a really watchable show. So it's been a little bit more sort of squashed for me this week, trying to fit everything in the weekend and not been in my usual surroundings either. Well, obviously Andy cut the wire for the basement TV, so it was trying to fit it all in.
Did you, Stu? What you get? It's not free. It's not free board. You might be living in the cupboard. It's not free board. Go do your job.
I'll stop banging on the ceiling, I promise. But yeah, it's been a bit of a challenge. But I did manage to get through the majority of the pay-per-view side of things. But I mean, first things first for me, Pat McAfee, Adam Cole. Didn't really expect anything other than Adam Cole to carry the whole match, but turns out the 2 weeks worth of training had obviously paid off.
It's even better now because there's things coming out that oh well, they didn't practice the match, they didn't go through any of the spots. I'm like, I'm sorry, this is just bullshit now. It's just how stupid do you think people are?
I think that's probably McAfee's ego, in the sense of, let's see how far we can push this, because obviously there are certain things that they have to discuss. So like one of the impressive bits, and one of the bits that's going to get replayed on the highlight reel over and over, will be the swanton off the top rope onto the entirety of his entourage and Undisputed Era. Yeah, you talked about that. We know you talked about that. But generally, in terms of the celebrity matches that we've seen over the years, not that I'd say it to his face, but even better than Mr. T. So obviously that's going back. But even when, because again, SummerSlam weekend seems to be the time for it, because it was, I think the last one I remember was the Stephen Amell match from a few years ago. That was SummerSlam as well. I thought he did alright at the time, but like,
well, I was going to say he was probably the one who came in and probably did the best. Sort of like, and the one that performance that was closest to like a trained professional wrestler. So
yeah, they'd probably done a bit of stunt work, you'd have thought.
I mean, even back in the day, the Lawrence Taylor one wasn't awful. It just wasn't that good.
But they had to say that was his first televised match, and they haven't had the house show thing to practice, the circuit to practice. But obviously they will have had access to the performance centre. But with the story in the match as well, about the sneaky low blow and all the rest of it, everything fit, everything worked well. If you had never watched it before, and you said, you'd have thought he was a professional. To me, I thought he was that good at it. I don't think he'll be taking it up full time, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him back for a bit more of a program at some point, and make it, as he quite clearly stated in his promos, make it his 8th profession. I don't know if it's a bit late to stick that in as a grumble now, so I'm not going to go too full on. But to me, if somebody was like, "Oh, I've had 7 jobs before, and this is going to be the 8th one I'm good at," they'd be like, "Well, what happened at the last 7?"
Well, to put it in perspective, until now, when I've just searched, he's younger than me.
Oh, come on then, Paul. What are you doing?
He's only 33.
He's had 7 jobs. That means so then.
And he was a bloody punter in the NFL for 7 years.
Does that count as half a job then, or?
well, not even half a job. Only on the picture. I bet if you worked out the entirety of the time that he spent on the field in those 7 years, it'd still maybe add up to 3/4.
I was going to say, it's not even going to be a full game.
No way.
So his match at TakeOver then was essentially a third of his career in comparison.
Yeah.
He's worked harder in one match at TakeOver than he's ever worked in a single game in the NFL.
Including the Super Bowl that he played in.
What? He's not won a Super Bowl, has he?
He didn't get the ring. It was the Super Bowl that the Saints won. So it was 2009, 2010. Saints versus Colts.
Right, okay then. Yeah, that'll be next level kind of piss take.
I will say on the prediction side of things, at least me and Andy stuck with the actual professional. Me and Andy picked up a point for sticking by Adam Cole at that point.
Well, yeah, if Triple H had stuck to the script and come out and cost him the fucking match, then we wouldn't have had to have this conversation, would we?
Again, if any of the writers are listening, just drop us a tweet, drop us an email.
And a follow and a subscribe, obviously.
Obviously, and then tell 6 friends to do the same. So, I can't. Whilst 50% of us were accurate in predictions on that, the hardest one of the night seemed to predict was the ladder match, as only one person picked that right, which was you, Paul. So yeah, shock horror. As much as I would have loved Cameron Grimes, and I actually thought he was going to win it a couple of times during the match.
You know what? There was. I was going to say there was a couple of occasions. One where I think Priest either took a big hit off one of the ladders and was like, "Well, that's him done. That's him not winning it." And then there was a couple of occasions where I thought Grimes was basically on it, but there was one bump where I think it was Velveteen Dream. I don't know what it was that he fell through, but it looked like it was a tough landing.
There was another. Oh man, that's gonna really annoy me now. I think it was Gargano. Was it Gargano that like almost sunset flipped over somebody, and it was almost going to be like to powerbomb him into the ladder, and he hit the edge of the ladder. That looked rough. If you didn't listen to the last podcast and you know the current situation regarding Velveteen Dream, you won't be surprised to know that nobody picked him. And for those of you expecting his career to absolutely crash and burn, watch the end of the ladder match, because that was a hell of a bump that he took to finish his prospects. Almost been pushed off the ladder, catapulted then off the top rope over the barricade through some tables. And I know they do their best to make it look as good as they can, but don't think the people sat at those tables necessarily were expecting that at the time either, being as they were still sat there. That was a pretty close call, but it did look good as well. No surprises at all that Io Shirai retained the title. Everybody picking that result out. It was a reasonable match. Nothing. Again, it's one of them ones where it's kind of leaning towards setting up the future stuff with Rhea Ripley, sort of neutralising Raquel Gonzalez and everything else. So it felt like a bit of a filler if there was such a thing on an NXT card, but everybody got that one right. Me at the beginning of, at the end of the prediction, last time, picking a no contest for Finn Balor, Timothy Thatcher, and then for the NXT title match. I think I boldly said, I'll get at least 1 point from those two. Yeah, that'll be no points for either of them then. But Matt and Andy both correctly picking Finn Balor to beat Timothy Thatcher. That was a bit of a shock for me, as we'd sort of build him as the gatekeeper.
I genuinely thought that I'd picked Tim Thatcher for that one. I was like, you could have changed that around. Oh yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it sounds like something I would have done.
So seeing as I didn't get any points for it anyway, then, and that was a nice admission there. Andy and Paul, do you want me to just knock him down by a point?
No.
So that led us into the main event. Again, as we've just discussed, I picked no contest, which didn't happen. Andy picked Keith Lee, which I thought probably would happen if the no contest thing didn't come off. But yeah, Karrion Kross, not only the new NXT champion, but also the proud owner of a separated shoulder. He's the night before SummerSlam, he's actually done a Finn Balor at SummerSlam in that respect. I've not really seen anything other than he's due an MRI this week. I've not seen any injury update. I don't know if you guys have seen if anything's come out.
The only thing I've read was that he's quite confident that it's not that bad, and they'll be able to kind of gloss over it for a few weeks while he recovers, and then come back. But what we'll probably find is tomorrow night he'll hand over the belt to be like, yeah, shit, I'm out for 9 months. Sorry about that.
It won't even be on. It'll just be a massive egg timer and her again with the belt in the sand or something like that. But yeah, it's a bit of a strange one, that, because with picking up the injury, if it happened, I don't even know. I couldn't even tell in the match where it happened particularly for me. It was one of them. It's like you want to know how early in the match they knew about it, but also then did they have time to call an audible, or as it's come out afterwards, Keith Lee, they obviously had plans for Keith Lee immediately following takeover. So would they have ever called that off, or did they have to go through with it? Really, what I'm sort of getting to is that during SummerSlam they had promos, and Keith Lee is now a member of the Raw roster, which, having one successful title defense, Dijakovic,
yeah,
and then straight into a loss. I mean, it feels a bit quick. Like I thought he would have had that. I thought he would have had it a good 6 months at least.
It seems a waste. It seems a waste of the unifying the belts for that kind of thing. And obviously, then he effectively had the belts for 2 weeks. If
a bit long.
2 weeks.
Both belts for 2 weeks, yeah, and then
yeah. He's had the North American one for a while, but he's had both belts for 2 weeks, and then
relinquished them.
It just seems like obviously it was like, I don't know whether it's been a quick change to bring him up to Raw, but it just seems a very kind of, alright, we've unified the belts, he's the best, he's got both belts, he's the best wrestler in NXT, and then, a month later he's off to Raw, which seems a kind of, I know it's still technically the developmental brand, but it really does stuff them back in their boxes, kind of, you are the developmental and we'll just call up the superstars when we want them, kind of thing. But it just seems to devalue everything. And I mean, maybe they just didn't think that Cross was going to be so good so quick, and people would get on to like him being, I think his trajectory's gone from slow build and perhaps kind of, do some stuff with Ciampa, do some stuff with Gargano, do some stuff with perhaps like Adam Cole or someone like that. Maybe they had something planned for Dexter Lumis with it. And then it seems to have been like, oh shit, we better put the belt on him now because we can't. I don't know. There was just no way that he could lose because he doesn't. His promos are fine. They're not. There's not. He doesn't do a massive amount of talking. Obviously, Scarlett does a lot of the kind of. Well, she doesn't say much. It's all very kind of witchy, kind of spiritual kind of shit. Whoa!
Not only this witchy spiritual bullshit bit, but don't forget she's a hell of a mime.
Yes. Apparently, she sang the song herself, but yeah,
once. Yeah, only once, just on the recording.
It's a very weird entrance, and I've got an issue with the entrance is not great. Her kind of, I mean, I don't know, looks like she's having a mild fit. And Damian Priest's as well is I don't like his either. The kind of when he kind of slaps the floor and kind of looks like he's convulsing for a bit and then shoots his little arrow.
I have no issue with that bit. I think that bit when they get the timing on it, which is most of the time to give him credit, I think that looks cool when like he fires the arrow at the screen and like the name kind of comes up in flames. I think that looks fine.
I think it's the weird hitting the mat then standing up.
Yeah,
that's just weird. It's just weird that they've doubled down on that with Karrion Kross as well.
But yeah, it was
with the Keith Lee thing. To me, it almost feels a bit like when they called up Cruz, because he hadn't been in NXT that long. I think Keith Lee's probably been in NXT longer than Apollo Crews was, but it seemed as though they gave Crews a couple of sort of big matches and then he was up. And you just sort of hope they don't have that same sort of missed step. I know he's doing well now when he's the US champ and stuff, but
whoa, spoilers.
Well, sorry, was going into SummerSlam. But you hope they don't sort of miss the boat with him like they have with a lot of the NXT guys in the past. And with the thing what Matt was saying as well, with the it feeling a bit sort of like it's still developmental and things like that, and that's not really what they were going for when they got him on USA. You'd kind of get the feeling it would take a big name going back to NXT to sort of get rid of that theory I mean, you could argue that Balor going back was that to get it started, but you'd imagine that there's been a lot more people that have gone from NXT than have come to NXT. So you kind of need to balance that out with some. I know there was like rumours of Orton going there and stuff like that. I think Andy mentioned it in the last podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But I imagine it would need someone of that sort of calibre for it to really sort of not feel like it is the minor leagues of WWE.
But they're gonna have to. I think this is the problem though. They'll drop, like, you know, Charlotte went there for a bit, Bailey and Sasha went for one episode, was it?
Yeah.
You get to push it to be level with the other two. They're gonna have to flood it. They're gonna have to like put 4, 5 male competitors, 3, 4, 5 female competitors in there from the other shows to kind of bring it up. But then it's going to lose. I think the idea is that it's a mark show to compete against another mark show, you know, and I'm probably putting myself definitely in that kind of category of being a mark, you know, and it's not because I'm particularly kind of no, I am. It's not because I'm particularly down on the Raw and SmackDown product. I just prefer the NXT and the AEW product. You know, and it's not. I'm not like, you know, sat on the couch rubbing my legs like Vic Reeves because Kenny Omega's coming out. And just, you know, it's like, oh my god, I can't believe it, Kenny Omega. Because I've not really seen that much of Kenny Omega, you know, before AEW. You know, yeah, I've perhaps seen more of the NXT people through kind of progress shows and like independent shows in the UK, and the same kind of goes for AEW. But I think this kind of need for NXT to be the same as the other WWE shows is a dangerous kind of thing. You know, I think your WWE fans, you know, I think that, you know, they get you know, bothered about ratings, but there's a lot of wrestling to watch. As you know, as we kind of like in the turnaround of what, a day between the end with SummerSlam and recording this, or, you know, 2 days if you want to be generous. You can't, well, there's just, you know, we've discussed it. There's just no way we could have watched everything that's happened in between, you know, take a night and now we've kind of
unless you've got no life outside of watching it, or, you know, perhaps you were lucky enough to be online at the exact split second that the tickets went for the Thunderdome, as I mentioned last time out. Still can't get tickets. Couldn't get a ticket for Raw. I thought, I'm on holiday, I'll try and register for SmackDown. Nah, they're not on yet. But I'm sure by the time that like we've finished recording this podcast, that they'll have been on and sold out within 10 seconds. So, you know. Speaking of the Thunderdome, have you guys seen that people are already getting themselves banned and in trouble?
Yes.
Oh, I saw something like that. They flashed up a couple of pictures on a meme. One of them was a picture of just someone had put a Pikachu on the screen.
Oh no, that wasn't. I don't think that was somebody who got banned. That was just somebody who was out there like enjoying himself.
Oh.
The first one I saw for getting banned was just somebody who changed their picture to a black screen that just said "Fire Velveteen Dream." You know, which,
I did see that. I caught a little bit of that. I think that was on SummerSlam.
Mhm.
Yeah. Then obviously Raw. I didn't see it myself. I've been watching very, very carefully for it. There was someone dressed as a member of the KKK.
Yeah.
Was it the
I think the worst one from a WWE perspective will be the Mr. C. Benoit popping up on the screen.
Yeah, that was the one.
He who shall not be named. We've got 10 guys as well, so just to let you know. So yeah, I was a bit. I mean, it was going to happen. I think they were naive if they thought people weren't going to talk about it.
This is the problem. You've always got one person that's going to, spoil it for the others, as it were, the kind of thing. But you just think, surely you've got to be more prepared for that. But I presume they must have dealt with it quickly. They must have people monitoring it. It's like, oh, we've launched an investigation. How hard is it? You go, right, whose IP address was attached to that screen at that time? You're done. You as well, and obviously the most egregious one is the KKK one, in my personal opinion. There might be people at WWE Towers that take the Ben One a bit more to heart, but could probably judge.
I just think it's almost like something summed up by the tweet that I saw of. It was almost like a collage of the different ones, including the Pikachu one, which I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what Pikachu has done to offend the global population. But it's
just stealth-tweeting people. He's like kind of, he wears a MAGA hat and all that kind of shit.
The line underneath was just quite simply, and this is why we can't have nice things. And it's true.
Yes,
absolutely true. So to get back to the predictions, as we were leading into SummerSlam, I was severely last by a point at the time. You guys all level on 3. So would I possibly fare any better? A little. I'll leave it at that until we get towards the end. So, what I mean, I suppose, by that as well is I was the only person who said that Drew McIntyre would retain. So, you're welcome, Mr. McIntyre. I'm sticking by you. Not to the point that I wore your t-shirt or anything for the podcast, but it's in the cupboard. I enjoyed that match. A lot of people that I've seen online have been saying about they thought the best match was the Mysterio of the Dominic variety and Seth Rollins, but as a wrestling match goes, the McIntyre Randy Orton match I really enjoyed. I thought it was well told as well on commentary. It's like basically a build to them. Whoever hit their finisher first, whoever was going to hit that one big move would definitely be the one that won it. And then to finish it with a good old fashioned backslide off the back of the counter to the RKO, which, I mean, matches aren't really won with that kind of move, really, are they? It's kind of like a part of a sequence into something else, but I thought that was good. They backed it up on Raw with a similar sentiment from what I've seen of McIntyre reminding Orton that he should be the greatest wrestler in the world after winning the greatest wrestling match ever of all time in the universe.
Isn't that
with a wrestling move? Huh?
That's like Teenage Theory, when you support a football team and your team beats the champion, and you're like, well, okay then. So we beat Man United and Man United beat Liverpool. So then, yeah, we're champions. It's kind of like, all right then. That's all I thought.
I suppose the only difference this time is he's carrying around the hardware to match at least.
Well, yeah.
So there is that. But no, to me, I thought that was match of the night. A strange move, but probably not wholly unexpected. After spending all that time in development and designing that new United States title, they could have just used the old Cruiserweight title if they were going to stick it straight on the pre-show every time. But that actually got moved in the end. I didn't think that Apollo was going to retain it. I thought that this story with the Hurt Business was too strong. Seems again, going back to my NXT prediction form, yeah, I was wrong. So just Andy and Paul were picking up points on that one. As I mentioned, the Mysterio Rollins street fight. We could talk about how good Mysterio was in his official debut. We all saw what was coming. Everybody picked Seth Rollins, so that was a clean sweep across the board. And yeah, I have my grumble about this match, but have we got time? Has anybody got a clock? Has anybody got me a timer? We in there. So very quickly, if it's last.
2, 1, go.
Okay, so Dominic Mysterio debut, all good, everything looking up. wants to carry on the legacy of his dad. Not going to wear a mask for his first match. Quite clear about the fact that he doesn't want to wear a mask for his first match. Why then wear a hood on your costume the entire time you're wrestling and spend a good portion of that match going and flicking it back every 2 minutes? Like, just take the sodding jacket off, mate. Like, nobody was like, it was good. Damn it, I've overrun this time. I thought it was the first time for me that, or first time in a long time that a wrestler's actual attire had distracted from the actual match, because I was just watching it, not to think, oh man, this is his debut and look at these moves he's putting off. It was like, he's going to flick the hood. Oh, he's flicked the hood again. Oh yeah, the hood's in his way again. Oh yeah, that was good, but yeah, the hood's over his eyes now. So it's like, just take it off. Why?
He'll just been going for his favourite wrestler, not Rey Mysterio, but TJ Perkins. So.
So yeah, with the predictions finally poised, I think we should probably take a little break just to make sure that we're all suitably refreshed to get through it. And then before we then go into our predictions for Payback. It's almost like we never left. Nice little refreshment pause there. Yeah. So, right. So we talked about Rollins and Mysterio briefly. Anybody? Obviously, I talked about Mysterio for a little bit longer than you guys. But any thoughts on that? What do you guys reckon to the debut?
I think it was kind of, from what I've seen, it was a solid kind of a debut. Kind of didn't, made himself having that kind of thing of what you didn't want him to come in and be like, just like his dad. You wanted him to kind of look like someone who is, still on, like making progress through, and that kind of thing, and kind of getting better and better. But I think obviously the whole storytelling of it as well, and making sure that he's, that Rey Mysterio didn't get involved, and his mum didn't get, and then obviously his mum comes out and all that type of thing. It's. I thought it was a well told kind of thing, and obviously we think whether it'll be proven out that it's obviously a bigger, part of a bigger kind of story than just that match.
Well, I thought it was a bit of a strange one, because obviously the whole thing has always been he's Rey Mysterio's son. There was never any mention of mum, and then randomly she sort of turns up, doesn't she, and I didn't know at one point if she was just going to storm the ring and just go and try and beat the shit out of Seth Rollins, because she was looking pretty angry. If you saw Dominic's mum and dad and you were going to annoy one of them, I reckon the mum would go for you quicker than the dad would, put it that way.
Well, it's like, I was kind of, when you're kind of watching it, you're thinking, he's quite tall, and obviously Ray is not. So where's he got his height from? And then mum's there, and she's nearly as tall as Dominic. You're like, oh, right, okay then, so that's where he's got the height from. Because if I was Ray, and we were both the same height, me and Mrs. Ray, I'd be like, sure he's not really Eddie's?
I think the right at the beginning of the match as well, I thought it was a nice little, obviously starts with the storytelling and the mind games and stuff, but Rollins' gear being a throwback to Rey Mysterio's gear from when he fought Eddie Guerrero back at Halloween Havoc in 1999, which still doesn't seem as long ago as it actually is. But yeah, I thought that was cool. So I'm pretty sure that we might get more throwbacks to, if in time, as Dominic develops his character. I wouldn't be surprised if Dominic takes on some sort of throwbacks to his dad's old gear as well, but I suppose time will tell with that one. The tagline, which I guess we never really discussed it last time, but you see that the tagline was just consistently there. You won't see it coming. SummerSlam, you won't see it coming, apart from the fact that you've advertised it quite heavily for the last 3 or 4 weeks. The bit that we didn't see coming was the Fiend taking the Universal title. That was odd to me. The match felt weird. It was just, I don't know, it was just clunky. And if I go on,
is it time to say that perhaps Braun Strowman is not a good worker? Or
I won't go that far. I won't go that far.
Does he need someone else to work with then? Because I just think, he's a big guy, and like Bray's a big guy as well. Does he need someone? Is he at that kind of stage of like Lesnar, where he needs a smaller guy to kind of play off him and sell stuff and that kind of thing? Because it just, like you said, it just looked really clunky and slow. And
I'm not saying anything like about his conditioning by this, because absolutely not. But like, it seems to be like the longer the match that he's involved in, the I don't know if it's just the pacing maybe of the spots and stuff. It just feels a bit like there's a spot, and then they've got to like do some filler. There's no kind of like flow between like point A and point B. It's like, we've got this spot to do. What do we do for the next minute? Like, we'll sort of stagger around and get to here. But like, if I'm going to be especially nitpicky as well about it, I really hate it when they rip the mat off the ring for the finish, because I think obviously it exposes the underneath, but it kind of exposes the whole business, as Paul's friend Mr. Cornette might like to say, because he gets a box cutter out, as they called it. This is for a start, it's a stamina knife.
Box cutter. If you're going to box cutter or carpet knife, those are the two things that they are in this world.
But you then get to see like the 3 inches of polystyrene padding or whatever it was between the actual mat and the ring, and I don't know, I just don't like it. It's a bit odd. But then the ring wasn't the only thing that got destroyed at the end of the match, because Bray has his hand, or the Fiend has his hand raised, new Universal title holder, and then again we didn't see coming, but I'm pretty sure we talked about a big return last time. And here he comes, the big dog, Randy Orton's best friend currently at the moment, I feel. So Roman Reigns is back, and he is straight into the Universal title picture by destroying the Fiend with a massive spear. To be fair, he looks bigger. I'd say he looks better, but that might be the veneers.
Do you think he looked bigger? I thought it looked like he'd leaned down quite a bit.
Look at the guy's arms for a start. Jesus. Yeah. Like he was.
I'd seen that. I don't know. He just looked like he was a bit.
It's because he's not wearing his
smaller than he had before he left away. Yeah, and he's still wearing a chest protector. Fuck off! You're not D'Lo Brown.
He had a t-shirt on. He's got a t-shirt to flog, Paul. He's been off for 3 or 4 months. He's got some bills to pay.
I don't know whether he will wear his vest. I don't know. I wonder whether it, depending on kind of which way they go with it. I mean, he looked. I thought, from what you can tell from the t-shirt, I thought he looked cut. Like he's just come back and he's going to be. I mean, if he does not have the vest thing, that if you go underneath that, he's going to be absolutely ripped.
It's a good a time as any to change up his looks, isn't it? Because he's
100%.
It'll feel a bit fresher because he's not been on TV for a good few months now. So why not? But I guess we'll find out. Firstly, I guess SmackDown on this coming Friday night, but also then Sinners has been thrown straight into the main event of the next pay-per-view, which we shall get to shortly. The one thing I guess that we've not discussed, or two things that we've not discussed, would be the women's matches that were on the card at SmackDown, on SummerSlam. Sorry, we did have Sonya Deville, Mandy Rose, which ultimately, we all picked Mandy Rose, apart from Andy. Which we did see that coming on the most part. I believe, from what I've seen, that Sonya has been given time off to deal with the stuff that we talked about last time about the intruder in her house and stalker and all the rest of it, which kind of got to wish her well. And if she'd have had her head shaved on top of that, and she wasn't necessarily agreeable, I think that would have been a bit of a low blow. So they did the right thing in the end, because they changed the match stipulation from hair versus hair to loser leaves WWE. So rather than losing her locks, she has lost her job. I will give that the old air quotes, because she will be back. Not sure where or when, but she is a perfect example to me, as well as somebody who will probably absolutely run roughshod in NXT if they decide to push her that way.
That'd be a good place to send.
Yeah. With the women's matches, we were all kind of convinced that Asuka was going to do all the damage, apart from me with my Bayley theory, because there was absolutely no way, to quote Mr. Williams, that Bayley was going to. And I kind of got it right, but just in an exact opposite kind of way, which in shorthand would be known as getting it wrong. So I didn't do particularly well, because I picked Asuka to win. Actually, to be fair, you guys all picked Asuka to beat Bayley. Didn't happen. But you then also picked Asuka to win the women's title from Raw, and that did happen. So, yeah, not great news for me. But would there be better news with the total of the predictions? And the answer, in short, is no. But it was a little bit tighter than I thought it was going to be, because I did manage to level up with one of you, which was Matt.
I was going to say,
so the bad news for you.
Feels all
bad news for you, Matt. Yeah.
I was kind of totting up. I was like, done bad.
But also, after 2 events, so God knows how many points, we still ended up with a tie. And I felt like, not normally when we've had a tie in the past and we've had an event sort of the same weekend, whatever, we've compiled it and it worked its way out. Not this time. So, Andy and Paul, to put you both on the spot to decide the future of the pay-per-view predictions championship, I've got a question for you. A pre-prepared, easy for me to say, pre-prepared question. So
don't worry, Andy. He'll have garnered this towards you to not give me a chance here.
Oh well, you can prove once again, Paul, your Rain Man-like quality of recall here, or you can just take a random stab in the dark, which may get you closer. So this year just passed, saw the 33rd annual SummerSlam, which by the way we did see coming, because you told us about that. But what I want to know to decide the future of this title is how many times has the WWE title or the World Heavyweight title been defended in the main event. Now, just to clarify, that means it could be the WWF Championship, it could be the Undisputed title, it could be the WWE title, or it could be the World Heavyweight title, so like the WWE big gold version of it. What hasn't been included is if the WCW title was defended in the main event. Sounds confusing, but yeah, thanks very much, 2001. So, how many times in 33 years was the WWE title match essentially the main event? Because Paul may know a little better, and I'm going to go with the closest. I think we should let Paul pick first, so Andy essentially gets the higher or lower option. So, have you got any thoughts, Paul?
So, I know there was a year when Orton and Lesnar went on last, and that wasn't for the title. There was the year when they had the Team WWE versus Nexus, and that wasn't for the title. Hogan versus Michael.
He's down to 30 now. This, how long have you played? Right, Paul's going through the full history of SummerSlam. We may be here for
we'll see you next week for the predictions of the pay-per-view. Because we've still got Paul going on there.
I'll go with 26.
26, okay, that is Paul's answer. Has Andy already written an answer down? Andy's gone with 27. Right, okay. So, you can, but you're not going to win anything. So by my calculations and the wonders of the internet and a little bit of Wikipedia in, because obviously that's definitely accurate, this was a bit of a surprise to me when I looked it up. So in 33 years, the WWE title has been defended 17 times in the main event. There have been lots of main events, that weren't. So, like, obviously amongst that, the big one for...
That's literally almost half.
Yeah. Like, every other year, as was, but the big one for us would have been 92, the Intercontinental title. Back in the early days, there was some... in the early days, there were some tag team matches as well. So, yeah, it did kind of pad out the numbers.
Was the of Dominic one of them as well? Because that was a SummerSlam. Was that a main event?
Yeah, I don't think it was.
That was the Michael Hogan one.
But yeah, again, so that and was that wasn't for the title either, was it? That was just Icon versus Icon. So
yeah.
Anyway, So unfortunately for Andy, the new pay-per-view predictions title for at least a week is Mr. Paul Williams. So turns out that not being surrounded by my gold was bad news for me in the end. So as we alluded to, we've got a bit of a tight turnaround pay-per-view wise. We have got 4 confirmed matches already for Payback, which happens this coming Sunday, live from the Thunderdome once again, the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida. The 4 confirmed matches are the United States title, so Apollo Crews versus Bobby Lashley. So the Hurt Business is still going for the US title essentially, but just a different person. We've got the Women's Tag Team Championship match between current champions Sasha Banks and Bayley. They're now squaring off against Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. Bit of an unlikely duo, but we'll get to that shortly. There's the Universal title match. So Roman Reigns was thrown in straight away to the title picture, and it's going to be him versus Braun Strowman versus new champion, The Fiend, Bray Wyatt. And we have the newly debuted on Raw Keith Lee versus Randy Orton. So it's probably pretty self-explanatory how Bobby Lashley came to be fighting for the US title, seeing as MVP couldn't get it done, and they've essentially just handed it on to his teammate. How would you promote that match when you've only got a week to go to a big-ish pay-per-view? Arm wrestling. Get it done. Yeah. And as well, Bobby Lashley, as much as jacked as Apollo Crews may be, Bobby Lashley, you wouldn't see him in a, if Apollo stood in his shadow, you wouldn't see Apollo in Bobby Lashley's shadow because he's that big. But of course, Apollo wins the arm wrestle. Didn't get that at all. So there we go. We got that.
There was shenanigans of that.
Well, as there always are. It's like the old contract signing, isn't it? It's like it never comes off cleanly. But I think the weirder one, if you were going to pick anybody to face the tag team champions from the women's division, would you have picked Shayna Baszler teaming with anybody, and especially Nia Jax? No. So it's a weird one, that. Them two have been at each other's throats for weeks. So I suppose it's the old story of the unlikely pairing and blah blah blah, but they've done that time and time again, haven't they? Like Sheamus and Cesaro essentially made a career out of it for a few years, but I thought that was a bit of an odd one. I suppose the biggest thing would be, I expected there to be an immediate rematch of Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre. Not gone down that route. So what they thought they'd do is have Drew McIntyre get kicked in the head 3 times within 3 hours, which has put him out for the weekend. So in steps Keith Lee to defend his honour. 2 people who've never really had any kind of history on TV. So
they're doing this kind of their best mates. I'm like, where from?
I think go on.
Because all I've seen is like just a promotion picture of them sat right at the performance centre with both of their titles. You know, they managed to quickly get that picture in for like the month that Keith Lee held the title. Quick, get a picture done. You know, well, actually, for the 2 weeks that he was just the NXT champion, so it's like, quick, get that picture in with Drew on it with him, because that's going to be the storyline when you come up. Like, what?
Matt's furiously typing away on Instagram now. This aged well under every time they posted. I think, isn't it strange how for the 3 matches of them mentioned so far, we've been like, oh, that doesn't make a lot of sense. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Tell you what, don't give yourselves a week to build up to a pay-per-view, and people wouldn't necessarily be talking like that.
It's bizarre though, because with the women's tag matches, they've obviously just gone, we don't like the Iconics, we don't like the Riot Squad that we've obviously thrown back together again. Obviously, the Kabuki Warriors are no longer. But we've already announced that they're going to defend the tag titles at Payback. Shit. I'll just throw those 2 together. Okay then. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. And Sasha Banks must be shitting herself because WWE's favourite injury machine is heading toward WWE's constantly. I mean, to be fair, touch wood for her. She's not been injured in a while, but looming towards her in her pajamas that she comes out in every week.
Oh man, she had her hair done this week. That's me being harsh now. I shouldn't be like that. She's definitely a better wrestler than I'll ever be. Put it that way. But yeah, so because we've only got 4 matches on the card, there have been some rumoured matches as well, which, as we have done on the podcast before, I've thrown a few in, but this time around we will have bonus points for will it happen and will it not. So I suppose we should start with those. Go on. You what, sorry?
We do so well with those.
Well, any opportunity for me to garner any more points at all, we shall see. So we'll start with them because they're not necessarily confirmed, but they have been in the storyline for the last few weeks. So I've done my best to kind of put these together. First off, I'm wondering if there'll be an Intercontinental Championship rematch between Jeff Hardy and AJ Styles after Jeff Hardy took the title in the first main event inside the Thunderdome. I feel like I should do that inside the Thunderdome. So yeah, firstly, do we think it will happen? Will we get this?
I think definitely. I think that one's a definite one, because obviously they built the story with the obviously AJ Styles injuring his knee. Then obviously he won the title by he was aiming to kick him, but obviously got him with the knee brace, and they'll be all AJ will be bitching and moaning on SmackDown this week. So that'll be.
Plus, he needs another reason to bring out his statistics system, which again wasn't a shot apparently at AEW's ranking system, but I did like the acronym though, because what was it? Phenomenal information statistics system or something. So the acronym was just piss. Like they got away with that on TV, and they managed to get a TV role for at least 20 minutes for all the best there. So that was quite a nice little bit for him. So Matt's going with yes, it will happen. So if it will happen, who's winning the title, or who's retaining the title, if you prefer?
I think Hardy will keep it.
Okay. I am in full agreement with everything you've just predicted. So that's me. I can see a little shake of the head there from Andy Cook and a thumbs up from Paul Williams. So we're all either get.
So we basically might as well have not bothered with that.
Yeah. Don't, you know, wait to sell our predictions, Paul. You know, it's
like dear listener,
normally we do. So now Paul's going to endeavour to make all of his predictions different to what we say, just so you have to listen to every single word. So Paul, we'll start with you then. And the reason I'm starting with Paul is because I'm going to mention his favourite wrestler in the entire world, King Corbin. Will there be the...
That's your favourite wrestler in the entire world?
It's absolutely not. So will there be a collision finally between King Corbin and Matt Riddle? Bit of a storyline since Riddle's arrival on SmackDown. Corbin's had the King's Ransom as a bounty on Riddle's head. Shorty G went from being Shorty G back to Chad Gable for about a minute, and then back to Shorty G again within the realms of that story. But ultimately, Matt Riddle is still alive and kicking. So it's got to be what in the PG era. Why would you be like, oh, I've got a bounty on your head? Surely they can't advocate assassination on TV. I'm sure it wouldn't have got to that realm. There'd have been some sort of it'd been like with a water pistol or like the old bang going out the end of it if it had ever got to that point. But yeah, Paul, will your favourite wrestler in the entire WWE universe get a match this Sunday against Matt Riddle?
No.
Okay.
I think if it does go ahead, it'll probably be the SmackDown before, so it'll be this Friday.
Okay. If, just for argument's sake, it does go ahead, who would you pick to win that match? Just so we're not completely diddling you out of all of the points.
Bro.
Okay. I mean, it wasn't much of a riddle to solve who he's picking. But, Andy, will it happen?
Yes. I think I think in a scenario where you've got a small number of announced matches and then a collection of rumoured matches days from your event, the rumours are going to be more solid than just rumours, because it sounds like they've got quite a bit of injury going on as well. So I'm probably going to say yes to all of the rumoured matches just to give you a heads up. And
so on the vein of Paul spoiling the predictions a second ago, basically once you get to Andy, just fast forward 10 seconds because you know what he's thinking. Cool. Okay, so who will win that match if it happens then?
It pains me to say it, but I think I'm just going to go random on this one. I think
okay.
It's going to be Hail to the King, baby.
Okay. That absolutely smacks of he wants that hardware back in his hand. He's playing for points.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I agree with Paul in the sense of if it's going to happen, they might maybe blow it onto SmackDown a little early. So we'll give that a go. I'm going to go no. But
Quick question.
Yeah.
What happens from a points perspective if they shaft us and put it on the pre-show?
No points. No points for you. No.
If it's not on the main card, it doesn't count as a point.
That's fine. That's fine.
So yeah, I'm also thinking that Matt Riddle will win because he's still a new boy, so he needs a bit of a boost. Matt, do you want to take the last prediction on that one? Is it going to happen?
I think it'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it'll be a no contest.
Ooh, that's different.
I think someone will try and cash the ransom or something like that.
Okay.
And then that'll probably happen on SmackDown, to be honest.
And then the last rumoured match I've got on there would be there's been a bit of a build between Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura as the tag team champions on SmackDown against Lucha House Party, who seem to have imploded a little bit on last week's SmackDown. The returning Kalisto, making up the third member of that team, but hasn't necessarily come back to a happy house party, shall we say. Andy, you said that you think all of these rumoured matches will happen. Do you? Yep, he's nodding away there, so I'll go yes for that one. Will there be a retention, or will there be a title change for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship?
Anybody that knows me knows that I love a house party.
Particularly if there's leaders
but
there.
not today. Not today. No.
Oh.
No house party today. I'm an old man. I like a warm cup of cocoa. Get myself tucked up nice and early. No more house parties for me. So
Definitely no parties with masks.
I mean, on a weekend. That's not. This isn't the podcast for that, Matt. This isn't. You know what time we talk about that? That's not now. That's directly after this, when these two have gone. Forget I said anything. No, yeah.
Okay, Matt, will that match happen?
So, are we classing the pre-show as not?
Not. Yep. If it doesn't happen on the main pay-per-view card, it's not happened for the point.
So I think that'll be the pre-show.
Ooh.
Okay. And who's winning?
Nakamura and Cesaro.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. And Paul?
Yeah, I was just going to say a flat yes, but now Matt's sort of confused me with his pre-show talk.
Matt's
No,
confused because you're
I'll
doing
do
not a party with a mask.
I reckon it will be on the main show because they put the Raw tag titles on this pay-per-view. So I reckon they probably won't want to piss them off too much by saying, yeah, you can be on the pay-per-view, but only on the pre-show. So I reckon it'll happen, and yeah, I'll agree in that. I think this will be where they break up the house party, and they're all just having to sort of go back to their own individual houses.
I also agree. I think if it's going to happen, it'll be pre-show material, but I'm going Nakamura and Cesaro as well for those exact reasons. Although when Paul says they'll be returning to their own households, I would have thought that will probably be after receiving a pink slip for 2 of the 3. I can't see the house party lasting much longer. We're
Which
under 10 guys as well. They'll keep Callisto, the other 2 will get binned off.
What? He's the worst one.
No, absolutely not. He looks like Darth Maul. He's more marketable than the rest of them with that spiky top hat.
He has never got over in any of the guises he's been in. He's just never got over.
How many times have the other 2 been a singles champion? That's it, people. 0.
You are obviously not massively in tune with Yago.
I don't know the statistics in Mexico and the AAA, if that's where they were before, but they definitely haven't been a singles champion in WWE, whereas Callisto was former United States champion, so they'll keep him.
And the Cruiserweight champion.
See, there you go. You did have something, just to back my argument up, not yours.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so the ones that we did talk about before, let's get straight into the United States Championship match. Apollo Crews defending against Bobby Lashley. Andy? He's not.
I was all over the map on this one. There's still part of me that wants to say Bobby Lashley, but no, I think it's going to be a retain on this one.
Okay, you can go for Apollo. Got you down for that, Paul?
Yeah, I think this could be the one where will he now have faced all 3 parts of the Hurt Business?
He will, not necessarily for the title though, because I think that Shelton Benjamin was with a set up to stipulations for having them 2 banned from ringside for the MVP match.
I think it's that sort of thing where you kind of have to admit that of the three, Lashley's clearly the big game sort of ticket and stuff like that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I mean, personally, I wouldn't have him anywhere near a secondary title. I'd have kept him in the main title hunt with Drew, personally. But they always seem to have this thing where if they're never too sure what to do with Lashley, they just put a secondary title on him. And I think they've kind of fallen into that. They've kind of fallen into that trap again. So I reckon that we're going to see a change, personally.
Okay, got you down for Bobby Lashley then. That's fine. So Matt, where are you going with this one?
I'm going to go for a switch as well. I think Bobby Lashley's going to win it. I think they're just going to lose the build. I think. Yeah. I just think. I don't know.
I agree with what Paul was saying for mine, except that I also agree with that for that reason Apollo will retain. I think ultimately the Hurt Business will all be wearing titles at some point, but I would have thought it will, like you say, they should keep Lashley near the top of the card. I would have thought ultimately Shelton will end up at some point with the United States title, even though Apollo's already beaten him. MVP doesn't need a title, he's just there as the mouthpiece, but if anything he could pick up the tag team titles with one of the others, so for that reason I'm going to go with Apollo to keep that. So Keith Lee versus Randy Orton. Matt, do you want to lead us off on this one?
Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a grumble first, if that's alright.
Well, I'm not sure I can cope with that. I might need to just compose myself before your grumble occurs. I think we might need to just take a small break, if that's okay.
Oh my god!
Get your timings.
The suspense is killing me. I can't take it. Oh my god!
Before we come back,
get your timings down, and we shall crack on. So we're just going to take a small break, and we shall be right back. Right, I don't know about you guys, but I feel entirely mentally prepared now for what we're about to hear. This could be the grumble of all grumbles. Bearing in mind this is probably one of Matt's favourite NXT wrestlers.
From his, obviously we didn't go, but one of the first kind of super strong style weekends that I watched was the year that Keith Lee was there, and people are like, oh, he's a big guy compared to what he is now. He was a big guy, and his kind of athleticism in the ring was kind of thingy. But yeah, right.
Before we get to the prediction, give the man his 30 seconds. Right, Paul's got it there. Ready to go.
2, 1, grumble.
Can we please stop rebranding or redeveloping new stars when NXT stars when they come up to the big leagues, please? It's been the changing outfit, changing music, and changing personality that I just found bizarre on Raw yesterday. It's obviously they didn't like what he wore in NXT, so changed it when they came to Raw, and then just went from there.
So for those people that might not be up to date with Raw, Matt, do you want to talk us through his Scott ensemble as we?
He came out and you thought, all right, mate. You kind of thought, all right, okay, that's a bit. He came out with his usual hoodie on. You kind of like, okay, then that's usual. Those shorts were a bit weird. Is he just coming out to cut a promo? Oh no, we're going to wrestle in these weird kind of satiny shorts, kind of skirt type thing, and a vest, a tight fitting vest. And I was thinking, he's been on NXT for the past 18 months, 2 years, wearing what he wears, and no one's got a problem with that. But all of a sudden, because he's on Raw, nah, he's fat. Can't, and that's essentially what it seems to be. Is we don't want to see that. That's gross. And you're like, he's been one of your champs dressed in something different. Obviously there's some kind of problem with the. Apparently there's some kind of problem with his music. So then they didn't have his normal music. You just think, obviously this has been planned. This has been something in the works for a while. Because I presume what must have thought was, right, he can win both belts, we'll make a big deal of it, and then he's going to come to Raw. And they just, and I like reading on the internet today, everyone's whinging about it. Rightly so. People aren't being daft about this one. He was, perhaps aside from, like, Adam Cole in NXT, he was the biggest star there. And I just think they've messed with his character a bit. I know he kind of gives these kind of promos where he seems thoughtful and all that kind of thing, but it seemed like a caricature of what he was in NXT, and then it just kind of went from there to this kind of like, what the hell is this and why? Because it's just going to be the quickest way to. I think, and another example of that was, like watching Raw today was, you can just see the trajectory. You've already had, they've had to rebuild Apollo Crews over what? I mean, I genuinely don't know how long Apollo Crews has been in, like, Raw or SmackDown. It's been what, 4 or 5 years?
I think if I remember rightly, we talked about this on a pod not too long ago. When did he pick up the title? Was it around Extreme Rules time, possibly?
Was it just after Mania?
He was already champion at Extreme Rules, so it was before then.
Maybe was it like the week of Money in the Bank? Maybe. Like somewhere around there.
It was basically he'd been in the main roster for 4 years before getting the US title, but he'd actually started in NXT in 2014. So if you think he's now been in the company officially 6 years, didn't get any titles in NXT, and his first title was around the time of it was just before Backlash, I think, if my notes are correct.
They've done it. It's just like star NXT, and when they come up, they are stars, and they just seem to ricochet. You can just list them. Ricochet, Aleister Black, obviously, hopefully, with the with the Kevin Owens on the KO show, that's going to lead to a good feud with KO, and it can push him up. But they massively he came to Raw / SmackDown with so much hype and so much kind of thing, and they just did goofy thing after goofy thing, like the creaking on his thing as it rose up from the thing, and it still pisses me off now.
But now they've turned him into essentially sort of Dutch Solid Snake. He comes back reasonably smartly dressed with the eye patch. After, I feel like I'm slagging that a bit too much, because I think if you take all the storylines out of it, if you were going to ask anybody, would they want to see an Aleister Black versus Kevin Owens match?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, please.
So,
give them, and as long as they give them 30-40 minutes to do some really good stuff, 20. What you don't want it to be is this kind of quick squash match.
Yeah, neither of them deserve that either. So, I think as well.
The hope there is that surely you'll have the Aleister Black versus Kevin Owens match. Black will go over, and then they'll move him into that position of he'll be the next heel challenger that goes up against Drew. And I think a lot of people will be very interested to see McIntyre versus Black.
No, yeah, God, yeah.
And actually, on the note of that, depending which way they go with it, if they put Kevin Owens over and Orton takes the title, they've then also got the face to go with that heel as well. So that's kind of like a win-win for me. They've got all eventualities covered. I think the interesting part about the prediction of Keith Lee versus Randy Orton is, should we have like a little side bet between like me, Paul, and Andy of, is Matt going to sit on the fence and pick a no contest, or how can he actually pick between Keith Lee and Randy Orton?
Well, I should just put Spider-Man GIF up now.
Now this is where we need to do the sort of like picture-in-picture thing of the clip from a previous podcast where he said, I believe he used the phrase, "I'm going to pick Randy Orton, and I'm never picking him on this podcast ever again." I just continuously play that back to him until he gets
the quote was, "I'll pick Randy Orton, and if he wins this time, I'll never pick him again." And then
right, okay.
And then I picked him again. So,
I feel like this is also then where we need the Jericho of the monkeys in the truck roll of footage. So Matt, did I steal your thunder, or have you fallen to one side of the fence?
No, I haven't. I have gone no contest. because I think I just obviously it wasn't tied up at the end of Raw this week, and they're making a big deal of this friendship that seems to be like, you know, the quickest, bestest, friendest ever kind of thing. I just think there's obviously going to be payback, mate, from Drew McIntyre with Randy Orton. But obviously, I think there's going to be some kind of like level of Drew seeing himself as some kind of mercenary now, and coming in. You know, if Randy's doing anything particular, you know, he's going to come and save his friend, and then Keith Lee's going to be naffed off with him and all that kind of thing to kind of build something in a different way. So yeah, no contest, because Drew's going to come in and F it up for everybody.
The reason that I thought about presenting that in that way was the fact that is the exact reasoning I came to as well. Surely they're not going to have Keith Lee lose in his first big match. I know technically I had a match on Raw that was called off in the same way. Can they feasibly do the same thing twice in a week? You'd like to think not, but they absolutely will. So I'm going no contest as well. Andy?
Stu, have you ever watched WWE programming before?
I mean, it's been known from time to time.
On and off for 30 years.
Yeah. I mean, not that you'd gather that by my predictions winnings or anything, but you know.
Honestly, Stu, I'm insulted that you've asked me, quite frankly.
Because
I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to bring it up. I didn't want to be that guy. But you're insulting me right now. That's all I'm saying.
I think we're getting to that point where, you know, you should go onto YouTube, hit the subscribe button, just to see the point where I ask Andy the question and he just hits the pause. He's just gonna start doing it.
Here's the question, though. Here's the question. What's going to happen when Randy goes up against Broccoli? Answer that question, because that's like
I can answer that question for you. Randy Orton will have his head split open yet again.
It's where you'll now do what's known as pulling a Mr. Matthew Moore and you just pick no contest and just see what happens.
Just back away slowly. It's Randy Orton for me. If that's a surprise to anyone.
Well, I'm glad we were all sitting down for that. But you know, if any of you have suffered from what you've heard on the podcast in terms of shock, then ring the numbers that you're supposed to ring for that kind of stuff. Paul,
I agree with Andy on this one.
Oh,
I don't know why, but I've just got this weird, horrible feeling that they're going to try and turn Keith Lee into a heel. And I think they're going to have him lose. He then blames McIntyre for being in the situation that he's in. And then, you can, in theory, you can see the logic, because big guy has the ability to look like a bit of a monster. It does
maybe you've hit upon the reckoning here, because is that the reason when he turns into the monster, he can finally go back to wearing shorts again?
yeah.
Yes, that's it. That's the way it works.
Whilst he's nice Keith Lee, netball playing Keith Lee, he can stick
to wear his
to
culottes.
Yeah.
The nice little satin pants.
Okay, so we've gone Randy Orton. Do you know what? Right, if Keith Lee now wins that, we're all knackered, and there will be no points at all. So two more predictions to make. This will probably be the quicker of the two, I should imagine, and maybe it should be phrased across the board of: is there absolutely any way, Paul, that Bayley retains the SmackDown? Not even SmackDown, just the women's tag team championships.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the. Surely this is the culmination. I mean, I'm saying that, but due to the sort of incredibly incoherent team that they've thrown together to face them. I mean, God, you've got actual women's tag teams that you could put them up against. What? Seriously, whose coffee did the Iconics piss in to get put in this?
Can somebody get Paul 30 seconds, because we're getting mightily close.
No, it's
almost a grumble.
It's not a grumble. It's just I hate it when they do this. When they just put together two people and just give them the tag titles. It's such lazy booking. But I don't know.
It's worked in the past, so surely flog that dead horse is the logic behind the round.
I think it's that case of the people that are going to come out of this the stronger are the team that lose the titles, because they're going to have the storyline where they basically shock horror. Obviously, I'm picking Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax to win.
Mm-hmm.
And this will be the culmination of the Banks, basically, without saying that many words, tells Bayley to go fuck herself.
PG, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Go fudge yourself. Yeah, I think surely this, if they're ever going to pull the trigger, the bullet was put in the chamber on Sunday night. So it is basically now or never. If they've been teasing it for 4 years?
Yeah. Well, it's been a long. Basically, this is finally the rematch that we're going to get, but just on a different brand for a different title from Takeover Brooklyn all those moons ago.
Yeah.
But I feel exactly the same. So I've also gone Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax, purely for, I think they'll do that whole thing as well of, in their title defences, there'll be squash matches, but they'll be against teams where Baszler and Jax just try and one-up each other the whole way through. And it'll be a different team to hold the titles. There's not been that many different teams hold the titles since the inception of the women's tag belts. But if I will throw in the caveat of if the team of Banks and Bayley do retain it, it will purely be because they still haven't had any side plates made for Shayna Baszler. That'll be my only thought. But yeah, I'm still picking Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax to win that match. Andy?
I wonder whether this is the point in time to play for the points. I'm just
no points.
I'm sensing that there might be an opportunity to take some points if it was to go that way. So yeah, time to play for some points. Bailey and Banks.
Okay. Down for that. I think, and as well, that you can't give them their full titles anymore because it's just Bailey Dostraps and Sasha Banks. Matt?
Yeah, Baszler and Jax.
You know, Andy,
terrible name for it. And
can anybody else smell that? Smells like points. Points.
Do you know what this could be? The podcast with the shortest amount of confirmed matches before the pay-per-view, but then the most number of points difference between the winner and the eventual second place. So, Paul, I'm purposely going to come to you first on the last prediction of the evening. The Universal title match. So it's been billed as a no-holds-barred triple threat match. Technically, at point of recording, they still have to sign the contract. So by the time that we come to it, much like the hair versus hair match, it could be a hair versus hair triple threat doomsday device match. By the time that we're finished, who indeed knows what this bullshit could entail?
They didn't need to put the no holds barred stipulation in it because a triple threat match is by its own nature a no disqualification match.
This was also very close to being my grumble this evening, but then I realised that for the amount of times I personally state the obvious, I would feel a little hypocritical doing that. So the reason that I wanted to come to you first, Paul, was because much like any good, kind of show, you need to get your catchphrases established. And as we've just had a title change last weekend, I'm trying to set this up for you in the best way I possibly can. What do you think is going to happen, Paul, in that match?
Well, no one likes cold. I can't think of what the opposite of a potato will be. No one likes cold apples, do they? Is it too obvious to have him come back and win the title within 7 days? Andy's like, so we take Andy's off first then.
That's exactly what I'm going with. Exactly what I'm going with.
Okay, in which case I'll put that in right now.
I can't see him doing that. Just for the sheer fact of, as was mentioned in like our group text, were they planting the seeds of a Roman Reigns heel turn? Is he going to have completely new gear? Is he going to have a completely new look? Are they going to do that to facilitate this long-awaited bad guy run that's been in the cards for 5 years plus? I think if they're going to go that way, they can't just do it completely cold when he comes back. They'd have to sort of build to it. So you'd imagine that he might not lose the match, but I can't see. See, it's annoying because he might not lose the match, but then do you really want to have Strowman losing 2 times in a week? I don't know. Either way, stick me down for breaks every time.
Okay.
Oh, and I don't know if you announced it. Was it? Are they going to pull this nonsense where Bray Wyatt isn't the champion? Only the Fiend is the champion.
No, because now as well. Don't forget merchandising opportunity. They'll all of a sudden the Fiend replica titles will be reduced on the website. they'll wheel that title out, so he will have that, and then Bray will have the blue one, just so they can sell a few of each. Got to be.
Yeah, maybe.
Unless you're kind of trying to allude to the fact that at some point there will be a Bray Wyatt versus the Fiend match, because I could see that happening in the future.
That'd be cool. Never happened. That'd be cool.
I think they will. I think they'll do it on the cinematic thing.
There is ways of them to pull it off, isn't there? Because all they need to do is just basically say, "No, come over here. Just try eating a few more cheeseburgers every now and again. Braid your hair and come back in about 6 months and we'll talk."
Okay, so ultimately you're picking the Fiend, right, for this point in time?
Yeah, ultimately I'll stick with Wyatt / the Fiend and whatever we're referring to him in this context as to retain.
After the initial setup, you're relying on me saying, so you don't want the hot potato happening with the title?
No, thank you.
I tried to set it up.
If you're there, Vincent, please don't. Please leave it alone.
That was lovely.
Well, one thing what you're saying about the Roman Reigns potential heel turn, one thing we've not mentioned all night so far is Retribution.
Oh, yes.
This group of what has now seemingly been narrowed down to 6 people, which I'm sure was about 12 people during one of the invasions one night. But they've set up a few teasers for who's going to be involved in Retribution, because it could be The Miz, because The Miz seems to be like last on the scene every time somebody turns up. It could be Roman Reigns. There's a few other people that like kind of it could have been involved in. I'm just wondering if, I think it was me that possibly put it on the, like you mentioned about the group text. It could have been me that mentioned that. However, are they now making that a bit too obvious with Roman Reigns? Does Roman Reigns even need any backup? Unless 2 of the members of Retribution end up being the Usos, maybe not, because they would definitely stick them back together as well. With regards to the triple threat, the fact that they're pushing this whole no holds barred business, I don't know if they're almost going to kind of like do the double turn, and the fact that Retribution might get involved in this match, but it will be because that somebody else might be the leader instead. I don't know. I'm picking Braun. Not Braun. Sorry, I'm picking Bray to win. Purely for the reasons that we mentioned about not swapping the title within a week. But I don't know. I don't know if they'll pull Reigns and Strowman into a feud. You know, we were saying before about how Strowman kind of needs that person to work with. It does, obviously in this case it's not necessarily the smaller guy, but I think that Reigns will probably get a better match out of him. So it could be Strowman that ends up being involved with Retribution in that respect, to pull Reigns in. As much as I'd like to see a Reigns heel turn, I mean, now that Cena's gone, they need the perennial babyface, don't they? So the fact that he came in wearing a T-shirt that said "Wreck everyone and leave," which was like in no way or shape or form any kind of reference to the Stone Cold T-shirt that used to say "Arise, raise hell and leave." Are they going to try and sort of give him the Stone Cold vibe to get him down with the kids, as it were?
down with the 30, 40-year-old kids.
I didn't say which kids. I mean, obviously meant kids of the 80s/90s. But yeah, I don't know. You'll probably be also to tell from the last 2 or 3 minutes that I've not been at work this week, so definitely had too much time to think about that. But yeah, I'm picking the Fiend to win, and ultimately that leaves Matt to take the last prediction of the evening.
The work and the thinking that you've done there, I've been doing the thinking whilst you guys have been talking about it, and I've like gone convinced myself that all 3 of them could have won it at any point. Well, no, actually, at no point did I ever think that Braun Strowman was going to win it.
It's a no holds barred match. Matt's picking no contest again.
I initially kind of thought that they put it back on Roman Reigns, because I thought, either they'd all take they'd take the Braun Strowman and the Fiend would take each other out. But then, like you said, the hot potato title, and if they're building Reigns up to be something else, and then I was like thinking, but then the Fiend doesn't actually seem to care about the title, and so I kind of like went kind of that side of things. But then ultimately, I came back to a Fiend retain, because it's the thing that everybody likes at the moment, and the people can say, it's not been on telly for a while, but up until this kind of the build up to Braun Strowman, the kind of Fiend and the Firefly Funhouse and all that type of thing, and you just know that there can be an element of kind of game playing with that. So stick with the Fiend for now, and hopefully, it's a bit kind of if Reigns comes back and they immediately put the title on, then it's just a complete kind of back to square one, isn't it, kind of thing, and people will be going nuts about it.
Yep. I mean, they'll want the internet to melt after each pay-per-view, and it would melt, just not necessarily in the best way that they would. But yeah, not to say that they won't do that, of course. So that is all the predictions locked in. With the extras that we've got for the rumoured matches, we could get a possible of 10 points, to which I will probably be lucky to get 3. So spoilers for next time. Tune in to see me get my ass handed to me again on the predictions after now.
Or just run the table.
So anybody got anything else, any other business for this pod? No.
No.
I'm checking that. Right. Lovely. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us again. Make sure you do get over to YouTube, as Andy will tell you. Give us a like and subscribe. Send us your predictions. We talked about this last time. Send in some predictions, and if you can beat us, we might even get you on. We've had nobody beat us yet, so here we are now. Come and challenge us if you dare, and all that other angry fighting talk business. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining us, and we shall see you next time.
See you next time, yeah.
Bye.
Cheers, guys.
So there we go. What do you think of that? Another one done. More wrestling than you can shake a stick at. Yes. It was good. So, there's that. At least it's good. YouTube watchers, do make sure you subscribe in, like, share, drop us a comment, click for notifications. So it's a lot to do, but I'm sure you can manage it. I have faith in you. Everybody jump over to thecookiecast.com. Check us out over there. Send us some of that sweet, sweet social media love. Drop us an email. Tell us how you're getting on. Send us your predictions. All of that good stuff that email can do. So that's it for this one. Till next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then. Bye.